Welcome to the Gravel Grinding Boys Route of the Olympian and Route of the Hiawatha. This will be a there and back from Saint Regis, Montana to the western trailhead of the Route of the Hiawatha at the Pearson Trailhead. It is a beautiful and easy to follow route that takes you into the beautiful Bitterroot Mountain Range. I'm going to be riding solo today and starting in Saint Regis at the beautiful Saint Regis Community Park. For you all who would like to make this ride a century ride, start about 3 miles out. I'll tell you why in the end. I'll be riding my Salsa Mukluk fat tire bike today. I've ridden this trail on my gravel bike before, and those 38mm or about 1.5 inch tires did okay on the trail. But believe it or not, my average speed on the Mukluk sporting those 4.5 inch tires was a tad bit faster than when on my Salsa Journeyman with those 38mm tires. And the Mukluk made this ride much more comfortable. Coming back and toward the end of this ride, the trail gets very bumpy. It's our calling card. After all, it's what we do. We bicycle bouldered byways bearing bruised booties. Leaving Saint Regis Community Park, take the right onto Mullen Gulch Road and head northwest and away from Saint Regis. Quick left after about 0.3 miles onto Saint Regis Road, also known as Saint Regis Street or Forest Loop Road. Saint Regis Road will turn into Little Joe Road after crossing over I-90. After crossing I-90 and just past the bridge over the Saint Regis River, take a ride onto the Route of the Olympian. The Route of the Olympian is the route of the Hiawatha's unknown Siamese twin. They were both part of the right-of-way for the Chicago, Milwaukee, St. Paul, and Pacific Railroad, better known as the Milwaukee Road. As a matter of fact, these rail trails share the same history as the Palouse to Cascade State Park Trail in Washington. The Olympian and its successor, Olympian Hiawatha, were passenger trains operated by the Chicago, Milwaukee, St. Paul, and Pacific Railroad between Chicago and the Pacific Northwest. The Olympian operated from 1911 to 1947, followed by the steam-lined Olympian Hiawatha that operated from 1947 to 1961. For reference, you can access the Trail of the Coeur d'Alenes from the Route of the Olympian via the NORPAC Trail, also called the Northern Pacific Trail. The NORPAC Trail and the Trail of the Coeur d'Alenes were not part of the Milwaukee Road. The NORPAC Trail was created from the right-of-way of the old Northern Pacific Railbed, and the Trail of the Coeur d'Alenes was created from the Union Pacific Railroad railbed. Most of the Route of the Olympian is shared use. Some parts of the trail are as rough as the reputation of the Palouse to Cascade State Park Trail in Washington, and some of the route of the Olympian Trail is as smooth as pavement. I'm riding on a Monday. I'd contemplated riding on a Saturday or a Sunday, but so does everybody else. You'll find ATVs and a few, if any, bicyclists on the route of the Olympian during the week. I met 2 ATVers, and they were both very friendly and shared the trail and not their dust. I do appreciate that. You'll find no ATVs on the route of the Hiawatha, but you will find people. Lots and lots of people. We'll talk about that trail a little bit later. At 2 Mile Road 431, your mapping software may suggest you go straight. It's lying to you. Take the left onto 2 Mile Road and you'll see the trail pick back up a little bit down on the right. The route of the Olympian is pretty easy to follow with a few head scratchers here and there. Navigating the route of the Hiawatha will be no problem. It is very well marked. If I'm not mistaken, this is called a plate girder railroad bridge. This bridge is about 1.8 miles from where we passed under I-90, and it takes you over the Saint Regis River. If you're enjoying this video, give us a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button, and don't forget, give a ring on that bike bell. Some maps will identify a place called Henderson, Montana as a place or town through here. There is no remaining remnants of a town. However, Henderson, Montana was a stop on the Milwaukee Road's transcontinental line, and likely it is all gone now. There's a slight and short bypass here, and likely because, at some point, the Saint Regis River really didn't like that old rail bed being there. My guess is, at some point, that river decided to take it back for her own. These addresses are part of DeBorgia, Montana. Most of the town is across I-90. Follow the road to the right called Coker Lane. It'll bend back to the left. This bypass is about 0.8 miles long. Taking the right here will take you to DeBorgia. DeBorgia? Huh, must be Italian. When the bypass turns left, keep an eye out for the trail on the right. Don't continue down and over the bridge. If you cross the Saint Regis River here, you've gone too far. You'll see this sign on a straightaway after Coker Road bypass, after Big Creek Bridge, and before crossing Big Creek Road. The arrow throws me off every time. It's like the sign is saying the trail turns left here. This is the way to a trail that I could find very little information on. I think it's to the trailhead of Storm Peak Trail. To stay on the route of the Olympian, keep going straight. Coming into a small community called Haugen. Haugen Yard was Milwaukee Road's engine facility used to assist trains up the upcoming winding grades. It was established as a pusher station for the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul Railway. This pusher station was where locomotives were added to help trains ascend the steep grades of the Bitterroot Mountains and up toward the Taft Tunnel. Extra locomotives were usually placed in the middle of the trains for heavier westbound traffic. Haugen Yard was abandoned in 1980 after the railroad went bankrupt. We'll talk about the Taft Tunnel when we get to the route of the Hiawatha. Haugen is at an elevation of 3,121 feet. The Taft Tunnel East Portal is at 4,220 feet. Haugen is before Saltese, and Haugen is where the railway ruins remain. This is the view 23 miles into today's ride and about a mile from the Saltese Trestle over Silver Creek Road. These fellows were the first cyclists I'd seen since leaving the park in Saint Regis. Once the trail goes under the wooden arch, you've reached the parking area for the route of the Hiawatha. The parking area is still the route of the Olympian and until you reach the east portal of the Taft Tunnel, also known as the St. Paul Pass Tunnel. Here, and as I pass under this wooden arch, I'm leaving the solitude of the route of the Olympian and about to hit the trailhead of the route of the Hiawatha. The route of the Hiawatha is commonly referred to as just the Hiawatha or the Hiawatha Trail. The route of the Hiawatha was named a Hall of Fame trail by the Rail-to-Trail Conservancy. It is known as the crown jewel of the rail-to-trail adventures. The name Hiawatha refers to the Hiawathas, a fleet of passenger trains operated by the Chicago, Milwaukee, St. Paul, and Pacific Railroad. The name came from a poem by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow titled The Song of the Hiawatha. The name referenced the poem's hero, Hiawatha, who could outrun an arrow he shot. The meaning of the name Hiawatha possibly means something translated as handsome lakes, the peacemaker, or he who makes rivers. The Native American ancestry of the name comes from the Eastern American tribes, which makes sense. Chicago, Illinois is where this train rail started in 1863. The Iroquois of the Northeast Woodlands are also known as the Iroquois Confederacy and Great League of Peace. This Native American Confederacy is made up of 6 Indian nations. This scenic trail, spanning 15 miles, is known for its 10 tunnels and 7 high trestles. One thing most people do not expect is, well, so many people. The Hiawatha offers some of the most stunning views of the Bitterroot Mountains near Lookout Pass ski area, and from the parking lot here at the East Portal, the trail is all downhill, a gentle downhill. At the end and near Pearson's Trailhead, Hiawatha personnel will load up your bicycle on a bus and haul both you and your bicycle up the hill using a different roundabout route. They'll drop you off near the west entrance to the Taft Tunnel, where you will cycle back to the East Portal and to the parking lot. As for me, I plan to ride back up from the western trailhead of the Hiawatha and back to this parking lot to enjoy the rewarding ride all the way down the route of the Olympian back to Saint Regis, Montana. Take note of how clean my bicycle looks right now. The video itself will explain in a moment. I'm about to enter the 1.661 mile long St. Paul Pass Tunnel, also known as the Taft Tunnel. One thing you'll notice, and even during the heat of the summer, it's the cold in this tunnel. No worries. You're going to miss that warmth here as you enter the tunnel through the East Portal, and then you're going to miss that tunnel's cool when you exit on the west side. The Trail of the Hiawatha season is usually around the last week of May through the last week of September, and from around 8:30 a.m. to around 4:15 p.m. Pacific Time. After the end of September and through the end of May, the trail undergoes maintenance and care. I made the mistake of riding this trail out of season, not really understanding that a rail trail can actually close. Keep this in mind too when thinking about water. During the season, and at both the eastern and western trailheads, there is water for sale as well as snacks. Off-season, there's really nothing else out here past the Saltese Trestle. Off-season, I understand that this trail is still rideable, with the understanding that snow will limit the capacities of a bicycle and the trailhead's accessibility. Off-season, you're going to find hunters on the trail. Off-season, and in the areas accessible to the trail by road, you may find an ATV or a side-by-side, but their access to the trail will be restricted by the gates. During the season, and between the end of May and the end of September, you'll see other cyclists and e-bikers, and maybe a rare hiker or two. Most who walk the trail will be pushing a bicycle. The Taft Tunnel is long and it is dark. There's a lot of moisture in this tunnel. There are 2 ditches on the left and right of this tunnel that direct water out. Try to stay in the middle and watch for oncoming bike lights. Each time I ride this trail, I tell myself to bring a fender or a disposable poncho. I never do. Nope, not because I don't think I need to. It's because I have male pattern forgetfulness. The tunnel's trail bed is a silty mud-like base. Your bicycle tires are going to be all but happy to share that silty mess all up your backside. I'm not going to show you the entire dark tunnel, but I will share some of the tunnel here at this point. The tunnel is not open year-round, and there is a way to get around the Taft Tunnel. If you ever find yourself on the route of the Olympian or the route of the Hiawatha and are not able to get through the Taft Tunnel, there is a route around it. Taking this route will quickly have you appreciating the rail grade of the tunnel and why they needed to build this tunnel back in 1908. The pass above the tunnel is at an elevation of 5,162 feet or 1,573 meters. The eastern portal is at 4,050 feet or 1,265 meters. At the eastern portal, you could access Cliff Creek Road, also known as Forest Service Road 506. Be prepared for a few grades in the teens, as well as a sneaky little 18%er in there. On the Idaho side of the tunnel, you'll find Cliff Creek and a very cool little waterfall that's worth a stop. Plus, you'll also take time to appreciate how muddy and messy your bicycles are. And I don't care how old you are, but a strip of mud up the backside of your bicycling partner's britches is going to have you giggling until you realize that you too look like you've danced the Aztec two-step. The first section of the route of the Hiawatha is shared. It's part of the Forest Service Road 506, but now also called Old Milwaukee Road. This shared area is about 2.3 miles and has one tunnel. In this area, you'll find the buses porting folks back up to the west portal of the Taft Tunnel. Keep that in mind. If you ride the bus, you're still going to need a light on your bike to get back to the eastern portal. During the construction of this section of railway back in the early 1900s, many small towns and settlements grew up. There were some that were quite substantial, and others that were basically small camps. As you can imagine, folks from all over the world and from different cultures and backgrounds came to work on this railway. Some 9,000 men, divided in sections and time, may have worked pretty good together during the day. But when back at camp, And back in the small towns, there was plenty of gambling, drinking, and, well, all sorts of activities that would end up on your social history if on a medical history and physical. You medical folks, you will get that reference. All but 2 of these towns were destroyed in a 1910 fire and were never rebuilt. A lot of the growth you see along the trail has grown over the past 110 to 120 years. For you baby boomers and Gen Xers, you'll appreciate that the last train passed through this section of trail in 1980. Seems like yesterday, yeah? Well, that was 45 years ago as of 2025.
you.
These white signs with black numbers on the Hiawatha Trail are railroad mile markers from the original Milwaukee Road rail line. The numbers indicate the distance in miles from the rail line starting point back in Chicago, Illinois. You'll see similar numbers if you ride the Palouse to Cascades Trail further on and into Washington. But that trail is a bit different than the Hiawatha Trail. A bit different indeed. I was riding up on this fella pulling a trailer and was trying to figure out what he was holding in his arms while riding his bicycle.
You got your hands full. No, you good. You good. I'll wait on you.
I'm with this whole line, so go for it.
No worries. No, you got your hands full with it.
I do.
Yes, you do. Coming on the left. I'll watch him. It's okay. You're good. They're having fun. They're having fun. We're all having fun. Uh-oh.
I almost felt like these grown folks were trying to cater to what they thought my expectations were. I expected to see a lot of kids, and not to mention, I ain't racing. I'm here to see the trail, not to fly down it. I always yield to kids and dogs. Grown folks? Well, it is what it is. After Tunnel 28, there will be a long stretch of trail without any tunnels or trestles. Tunnel 29 will be the last significant attraction until you reach Pearson's Trailhead shortly thereafter. Down there is the St. Joe River Road and the St. Joe River. On most mid-season days, you'll find a very long line waiting for the bus at Pearson Trailhead. The route of the Hiawatha is described as a gentle downhill. That same adjective, gentle, usually doesn't precede the noun uphill by folks pedaling back the 15 miles to the Taft Tunnel. Most of the people you find returning by bike are on e-bikes. At least that's my observation. Used to be you'd see very few people pedaling back uphill, but still, there are a few who are adventurous and elect to pedal back up. As for me, there is no way and no how I am waiting in this line. Heck y'all, I'll be back at the Taft Tunnel and on my way back down the route of the Olympian by the time my potential spot in line reaches the bus. The Milwaukee Road actually continues on down for many miles. It's shared use beyond this point. There are more bridges and tunnels to see. The old Milwaukee Road follows the St. Joe River about 9 or 10 miles, all the way to the St. Joe River Road at Avery, where there is a store, motel, and camping along the way. From Avery, if you continued west, you'd end up at St. Marie's, Idaho, 46 to 47 miles farther down. Keep going another 15 miles, and you'll find Hayburn State Park and the Trail of the Coeur d'Alenes, another future video in the works. I'll not present that section of trail in this video, but I have plans to do so in the future. Right now, I'm going to find me a bit of shade, and I'm going to have a snack before heading back up to the Taft Tunnel, and then a glorious downhill on the route of the Olympian. There'll be a little bit more information as the video continues, but for the most part, the rest of the video will be a music montage of the trails and as I experience the 48 miles back to Saint Regis, Montana. Enjoy.
Time for me to go. You on your own. Get a job.
The anticipated bus schedule for the early season, usually starting at the end of May and the 1st of June, is 11 a.m. to 4:15 p.m. Pacific Time. The peak season is from early June to late August. Anticipate the buses to start loading at 11 a.m. and the last shuttle at 4:15 Pacific Standard Time. On weekends during the peak season, the buses start loading at 10:45 a.m. and the last shuttles around 5:45 p.m. Late season is pretty much the first 3 weeks of September. The shuttles leaving Pearson start loading at 11 a.m., with the last shuttle loading at 4:15 p.m. Pacific Time. Shuttle buses operate between Pearson and Roland trailheads only. Keep that in mind. The Roland Trailhead is at the west entrance of the Taft Tunnel. You will need a light to get back to the east portal. Years ago, when my son was 13, we 3 biked this trail.
So we're at it again, right, Travis?
No.
What are we riding today?
Hiawatha.
The Hiawatha. Who'd we bring with us? Oh my great! We brought Mama, didn't we? Oh my gracious! All right, let's get loaded up. This little dude, he's getting at it. Taking it to town. You got it, buddy? Well, Travis, we did it. Mama did it. Mama did the 15 miles. Travis, how many miles you do?
30.
30. I think she might have been a little perturbed at us doing that extra uphill. But I think she's going to be over it. Especially tonight. We're going to drink 3 beers.
Okay.
It took me about an hour and 15 minutes to get back up to the Taft Tunnel. The time to ride back from the Pearson Trailhead to the Taft Tunnel will vary depending on your cycling ability. Passing the last restroom and the wooden arch on the far east side of the Hiawatha parking area, I got back on the route of the Olympian. From here, it's mostly downhill. If you're feeling blessed at this point, that's okay. Just keep in mind that ruts, washouts, and baby heads tend to hit harder the faster you're traveling. There are some very nice areas on this trail, and there are some very rough areas as well. You know, I had plenty of water by the time I was passing back through Haugen, but I figured I'd get me a nice cold drink here. I pulled up on my bike and I asked what was good and without cream. I'm not feeling dairy at the moment. I love dairy, I do, but not during this much exertion. The interaction was cordial, but not, well, you know.
Hey, what do you got that doesn't have ice cream in it? No dairy. Not that, you got any?
Look at the menu.
Yeah.
Full,
You got Italian soda?
yeah.
Yeah, I want one of those without the cream.
Okay.
That'll be good.
Flavor.
Oh, what's good? Huckleberry.
Okay. And what size?
I guess a medium. Yes, ma'am.
25.
Keep the rest. Thank you very much.
Have a good one.
Yes, ma'am. Where's your garbage? You have one out here?
No, I don't have any out there.
Oh, no, that's all right.
The drink was about $5 or $6. I gave her a 10 and told her to keep the change. Then, holding that plastic cup of that cold beverage, I knew that it wasn't going to take long for me to down that thing, and I asked where the trash can was. After all, it's pretty obvious that I'm on a bicycle. She said she didn't have a garbage. Well, I'm pretty sure she had a garbage, but like I said, that's all right. Sure enough, that drink didn't last a moment. It was good, but now I'm stuck with this plastic cup of ice. I propped the cup of ice up in my frame bag and just rode on. And you know what? I learned something. A few miles later, I was missing that cold drink, and I remembered that cup of ice in my frame bag. That now watered down cold drink still had some ice, and it was delicious. Thank you, No Trash Can Lady. I appreciate you, and I'm sincere when I say that. Later this summer, I rode my bicycle from Sandpoint, Idaho to Princeton, British Columbia, Canada, and I was lucky enough on many mornings to find a coffee shop and ordered an iced latte those mornings. Those plastic cups gave me a mid-morning ice pick-me-up as well as a cup to drink my beer out of later those evenings. After all, classy folks like myself do not drink beer out of a can. We drink beer out of old plastic latte cups. You gotta have some standards, right?
railroad spike. That's mine.
I found a railroad spike here. I have many railroad spikes from the different rail trails I have ridden. The railroad spikes we find on the trails are displayed as sort of a trophy in our home. And leave it up to me to carry those heavy things all the way back home on my bicycle. The trail finally made its way back to 2 Mile Road 431, and then later onto Little Joe Road and pavement. The shadows were just as long here in the evening as they were here in the morning. Today was a good day. I traveled 95.4 miles with 7 hours and 34 minutes in the saddle. The bike came off the rack at 8:30 a.m. and found its way back on the route that evening at 7:30 p.m. I stop a lot to photograph and see the sights. It's just what I do when I take these day trips. My elevation gain was 2,825 feet. For all of you who want to ride these trails and make a century out of it, or if you're coming over from New Zealand and want to do a ton, my mates from New Zealand will get that reference. Start today's ride at about 3 miles back and into Saint Regis, and end your ride at that same place. That will add about 6 miles and put you a bit over 100 miles for the day. Thank you for watching the Gravel Grinding Boys presentation of the Route of the Olympian and the Route of the Hiawatha Rail Trails. If you've enjoyed this video, give a thumbs up if you will. Hit that subscribe button and give a ring on that bike bell. I've seen a few of you all on the trail, and I appreciate the waves greeting and trailside camaraderie. I hope to meet many more of you all.